The Alliance vessel Intrepid cut through the void of space, its massive engines humming with control power. Commander Ria Takeda surveyed the bridge, her keen eyes scanning the mix of species working at various stations. Humans from Earth, Keldorians with their iridescent skin, gentle Paxians with 4 arms, and dozens of other species from across the galaxy, all united under the Alliance banner to maintain peace across known space. But there was one figure that stood apart from the rest, both literally and figuratively. In the far corner of the bridge, a towering warrior stood motionless, observing the stars through the viewport. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in natural armor that resembled burnished bronze plates, Zalin Kvorn was an imposing sight. The last known member of the ancient Kronoth race, he was a living relic, a warrior who had fought in the Galactic Expansion campaign over 3 centuries ago. No one approached him. No one even looked his way if they could help it. Whispers followed Zalin wherever he went. Tales of the Battle of Rexus Prime, where he had single-handedly decimated an enemy battalion. Stories of the Void Siege, where he had stood guard for 14 days straight without rest while his comrades slept. Some said he had once counted his kills, until the number grew too large to track. "That Kronoth gives me the chills," a young Keldorian navigator whispered to his human colleague. "They say his species can live for 1,000 years. Imagine carrying all that violence in your memory for centuries." His companion nodded. "I heard he watched his entire squad die in the expansion wars. Everyone he's ever served with, gone. No wonder he doesn't talk to anyone." The doors to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss, breaking their conversation. A young human woman walked in, her Alliance uniform crisp and new, black hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Elena Chun, fresh from Earth's Interspecies Military Academy, recently assigned as the Intrepid's communications specialist. Commander Takeda smiled. "Lieutenant Chun, welcome aboard. Your transfer papers came through this morning." "Thank you, Commander," Elena replied, her voice steady despite the nervousness fluttering in her stomach. Her eyes scanned the bridge, taking in the advanced technology, the diverse crew, and then landed on the solitary figure by the viewport. For a moment, their eyes met. Zalin's were gold with vertical pupils, ancient and unreadable. He turned away first, dismissing her as just another temporary presence in his endless existence. Instead of being intimidated like the others, Elena felt a surge of curiosity. There was something in those eyes, not just coldness, but something deeper. Pain, perhaps. Loneliness. "Lieutenant Chun," Commander Takeda continued, drawing her attention back. "You've been assigned to shadow Lieutenant Commander Kvorn for your first mission cycle." A hush fell over the bridge. Several officers exchanged glances. "The Kronoth," someone whispered too loudly. Elena straightened her posture. "Understood, Commander." Zalin turned from the viewport, his armored plates shifting with a faint metallic sound. "I work alone." His voice was deep and resonant, with an accent that carried echoes of languages long extinct. Commander Takeda was unfazed. "Not this time, Kvorn. The lieutenant's expertise in cross-species communication will be valuable for this mission." Zalin's golden eyes narrowed slightly. Just another fragile human. They never last. Before Takeda could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Commander, urgent message from Alliance headquarters," announced the communications officer. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying an Alliance general with a grave expression. "Commander Takeda, we've received reports of increased activity at the borders of Alliance space. The remnants of the Krell Dominion appear to be regrouping on Tartarus 4. A murmur ran through the bridge. The Krell, a mercenary species known for their brutality, have been a destabilizing force in the galaxy for decades. They've been raiding outposts along the Viridian Expanse, the general continued. Intelligence suggests they're building something big. We need you to investigate. Your ship's proximity to the sector makes you our best option." "Acknowledged, General," Takeda replied. "We'll set course immediately." As the transmission ended, the commander turned to her crew. "Set course for Tartarus 4. Lieutenant Chun, Lieutenant Commander Kvorn, report to the briefing room. This will be your first assignment together." As the bridge burst into activity, Elena glanced at Zalin. The ancient warrior was already moving toward the exit, not bothering to check if she followed. "Don't take it personally," a nearby officer whispered to her. "The Kronoth doesn't warm up to anyone." Elena straightened her shoulders and followed the towering figure off the bridge. She had faced prejudice and skepticism throughout her career as a woman in the military. One aloof alien warrior wasn't going to intimidate her. Little did she know that this assignment would test not just her professional skills, but her very understanding of connection, compassion, and the healing power of human empathy in the face of centuries-old pain. The briefing room buzzed with tension as officers gathered around the holographic display of Tartarus 4. A desolate world of rust-colored canyons and jagged mountains. It hung in the center of the room like an ominous red eye. Commander Takeda wasted no time. Intelligence reports suggest the Krell have established a forward operating base in the northern hemisphere. She gestured, and the hologram zoomed in on a cluster of structures nestled within a massive canyon. "We need to confirm their numbers and intentions before the Alliance commits more resources." Zalin stood apart from the group, arms crossed over his massive chest. "A simple reconnaissance mission. I can handle it alone." The commander shook her head. "Not this time. We're sending in a mixed team. You'll lead, with Lieutenant Shun and a squad of 6 others." A collective inhale from the other officers. Nobody wanted to be on that squad. "With respect, Commander," a Paxian officer interjected, "the Kronoth has a certain approach to missions. The casualty rate for those who serve with him is—" "That's enough, Lieutenant." Takeda cut him off. "I've made my decision. The team will deploy in 6 hours." Dismissed. As the room cleared, Elena approached Zalin. Up close, the warrior was even more impressive. The armor-like plates covering his body showed countless battle scars, some ancient, some newer. "Lieutenant Commander," she began. "I wanted to—" "Save it," Zalin interrupted, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Your kind live such brief lives. You're eager, impulsive. I've seen countless humans come and go." "I'm not just any human," Elena replied, meeting his gaze steadily. For a moment, surprise flickered in those ancient eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by cold indifference. 6 hours. Be prepared. If you slow me down, I will leave you behind." He turned and walked away, leaving Elena alone in the briefing room. "Not the friendly type, is he?" Elena turned to see a human sergeant approaching, his weathered face sporting a sympathetic smile. "Sergeant Malik," he introduced himself. "I'm on your squad for this mission. Don't mind the Kronoth. He's been like that as long as anyone can remember." "How long has he served with the Alliance?" Elena asked. "Longer than anyone else on this ship. There's stories about him fighting in wars hundreds of years ago." Malik shrugged. "Some say he's the last of his kind. Others say he's practically immortal. All I know is he's the best warrior I've ever seen. And he works alone." "Not anymore," Elena said, determination settling in her chest. 6 hours later, she found herself in the dropship bay, checking her gear one final time. The team consisted of Malik, 2 other humans, a Keldorian technician, a burly Dreshian medic, and a nimble Cyrene scout. All of them kept a respectful distance from Zalin, who was methodically inspecting his own equipment, an ancient energy rifle and a curved blade that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Commander Takeda approached the group. "Your mission is simple. Get in, gather intelligence, get out. No engagement unless absolutely necessary." "What if the Krell have hostages?" Elena asked. "The outpost raids. Rescue is secondary to intelligence," Takeda replied, though her expression softened slightly. "But use your judgment in the field." The dropship journey was silent and tense. Elena studied her teammates, noting how they all avoided looking directly at Zalin. The ancient warrior sat motionless, eyes closed in what appeared to be meditation. When they landed in a sheltered ravine several miles from the Krell base, Zalin immediately took point, moving with surprising stealth for his size. The team followed, maintaining formation through the rust-colored terrain. "First sign of trouble, we retreat to the extraction point," Malik whispered to Elena. The Kronoth doesn't believe in tactical withdrawals. He believes in completing the mission, she replied. At any cost, Malik added grimly. They approached the outskirts of the Krell base as the planet's twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the canyon. Through her binoculars, Elena counted at least 30 Krell warriors, reptilian humanoids with ridge-backed exoskeletons and deadly precision weapons. More than reported, she murmured. And they're building something, the Keldorian technician added, pointing to a large structure under construction in the center of the base. Suddenly, Zalin raised his hand, signaling the team to stop. Without warning, he melted into the shadows, disappearing from sight. Where's he going? Elena asked. That's his way, Malik replied with resignation. He scouts alone, returns when he's ready. Elena frowned. That's not how a team operates. Before anyone could stop her, she followed in Zalin's direction, staying low and using the terrain for cover. Her training at the academy had included stealth operations, and she moved quietly through the rocky landscape. She found Zalin perched on an outcropping, observing the base through enhanced vision. He didn't turn as she approached, but his posture stiffened slightly. You should be with the others, he said, voice barely above a whisper. And you should have informed the team of your intentions, she countered, keeping her voice equally low. For the first time, something like surprise crossed his features. Few people ever challenged him. Before he could respond, movement at the base caught their attention. A group of Krell warriors was escorting prisoners, civilians from the raided outposts, about a dozen of them, including children. Hostages, Elena breathed. We need to complete our mission, Zalin interrupted. We observe and report. Those are civilians, she argued. They could be dead by the time reinforcements arrive. Many more will die if we fail to report what the Krell are building, he replied coldly. This is war, Lieutenant. Casualties are inevitable. Elena studied his face, searching for emotion behind the stoic mask. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night, after centuries of fighting? Something flashed in those ancient eyes. A brief glimpse of pain, quickly suppressed. I don't sleep much, he said finally. An alarm suddenly blared from the base. The Krell were on alert, warriors rushing to defensive positions. We've been spotted, Elena realized with horror. Not us, Zalin replied, pointing to where their team had been. In the distance, weapons fire erupted. Them. Without hesitation, Zalin stood and began moving toward the conflict, his rifle ready. Elena followed, surprise giving way to determination. Whatever his flaws, the ancient warrior wasn't abandoning his team. They arrived to find 3 Krell warriors dead and Sergeant Malik wounded, clutching his side as the Drescia medic worked frantically to stem the bleeding. Patrol found us, gasped the Cyrene scout. More coming. Zalin surveyed the situation with calculating eyes. New plan. Chun, take the wounded back to the extraction point. I'll create a diversion. Alone? Against an entire base? Elena shook her head. That's suicide, even for you. I've survived worse, he replied flatly. Before Elena could argue further, more Krell appeared on the ridge above them. Zalin moved with blinding speed, his ancient weapon cutting down 2 enemies before they could fire. Go, he ordered. Elena made a split-second decision. Malik, can you move? The sergeant nodded weakly. Get everyone to extraction, she told the Drescia medic. We'll meet you there. We, the medic questioned. Elena checked her weapon. I'm staying with the lieutenant commander. For a moment, the team stared at her in disbelief. Then understanding dawned on their faces, a mixture of respect and concern. Your funeral, Malik managed through gritted teeth. No one fights alongside the Kronoth and comes back unchanged. As the team retreated, Elena turned to Zalin, who was reloading his weapon with practiced efficiency. I didn't ask for your help, he growled. You didn't have to, she replied, taking position beside him. That's what teammates do. For the briefest moment, Zalin seemed at a loss for words. Then the moment passed, and he was all business again. We need to draw them away from the extraction point. Follow me, stay close, and do exactly as I say. What followed was the most intense combat experience of Elena's life. Zalin moved like a force of nature, methodical, precise, and devastating. He didn't fight like someone who feared death. He fought like someone who had faced it countless times and remained standing. Elena held her own, her academy training serving her well as they engaged in a fighting retreat, leading the Krell pursuers on a dangerous chase through the canyon. "You handle yourself well," Zalin commented during a brief respite, genuine surprise in his voice. "For a human. And you're not bad yourself," she replied with a small smile. "For a legend." Something almost like amusement flickered across his face before he turned serious again. "We're nearly out of time. The drop ship can't wait forever." Elena checked her tactical display. "There's a narrow passage ahead. Perfect for an ambush." Zalin nodded appreciatively. "Perhaps there's more to you than I assumed, Lieutenant Shun." Together, they prepared a hasty trap, using the terrain and their remaining equipment. When the Krell squad pursued them into the narrow canyon, the resulting explosion brought down enough rock to block the passage. They made it to the extraction point just as the dropship was preparing for emergency liftoff. The rest of the team was already aboard, Malik stabilized, but still serious. As they lifted off, Elena noticed Zalin studying her with an unreadable expression. "What?" she asked. "Most humans would have fled," he said simply. "You didn't." It wasn't quite respect in his voice, but it was something close to it. For Elena, it felt like the first crack in a wall centuries in the making. Back on the Intrepid, the debriefing was tense. Commander Takeda listened gravely as Elena reported their findings. The larger-than-expected Krell force, the mysterious structure under construction, and the civilian hostages. Based on what we observed, Elena concluded, the Krell appeared to be building some sort of weapon or signal array. Its purpose remains unknown, but the scale suggests something significant. "And the hostages?" Takeda asked. "Approximately 12 civilians, including children," Elena replied. "Their conditions seemed stable, but—" "They are leverage," Zalin interrupted, speaking for the first time since the debriefing began. "The Krell know the Alliance will hesitate to strike if innocents are present." Takeda nodded grimly. "A classic tactic. I'll forward your findings to headquarters. They'll determine our next move." She looked at the assembled team. "Good work out there." Dismissed. As the team dispersed, Elena lingered, watching Zalin. Instead of leaving immediately, as was his habit, he stood motionless, staring at the tactical display of Tartarus IV. "Something's troubling you," she observed, approaching him. He didn't look at her. "The structure they're building, I've seen something similar before. When 200 years ago, during the expansion wars." His voice was distant, as if speaking from across centuries. It was a quantum resonance amplifier, a weapon capable of disrupting molecular bonds across vast distances. Elena felt a chill. "You think the Krell are building a superweapon? If I'm right, they could target any Alliance world within 10 parsecs. Finally, he turned to her. "We need confirmation. Commander Takeda said headquarters will determine our next move. By then, it may be too late." There was urgency in his voice now, something Elena hadn't heard before. "The Alliance moves slowly. Committees, protocols, procedures while they debate the Krell build." Elena studied him, seeing something new in the ancient warrior. Not just duty or cold calculation, but genuine concern. "What are you suggesting?" she asked carefully. "Nothing that would compromise your position, Lieutenant," he replied, turning away. "Forget I spoke." "Zalin," she said, using his name for the first time. "If you're right about this weapon, countless lives are at risk. Tell me what you're thinking." The use of his name stopped him. Slowly, he turned back. "I'm going to return to the surface. Alone. I need to get closer to that structure, confirm my suspicions." "Not alone," Elena said firmly. "I'm coming with you. Why would you risk your career, your life, on my suspicion? Because if you're worried enough to break protocol, then I'm worried too." She held his gaze. "And because that's what teammates do." For a long moment, Zalin studied her, as if seeing her truly for the first time. Then he gave a single, solemn nod. "We leave at 0200 hours. Be ready." The ship's night cycle found Elena in the armory, making final preparations. She had left a sealed message for Commander Takeda, to be delivered if they didn't return, explaining their actions and accepting full responsibility. As she checked her tactical gear, Zalin appeared silently beside her. "You should know," he said without preamble. "The odds of our return are not favorable. I'm aware of the risks." "Are you?" He moved to a weapons locker, entering a code that opened a secure compartment containing what appeared to be ancient weapons of Kronoth design. "My people had a saying, walk with death long enough, and it becomes your only companion." Elena watched as he methodically selected his equipment. "Is that why you keep everyone at a distance? Because you've walked with death too long?" His hands paused briefly. "Everyone I have ever served with is dead, Lieutenant. Every squad mate. Every commander. Every—" He hesitated. "Friend." "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Time is the true enemy," he continued, his voice taking on a quality she hadn't heard before, something almost vulnerable. "Humans live such brief lives. Barely a century, if you're fortunate. My people lived for millennia. And you're the last?" He nodded once, a sharp motion. "As far as I know, the Krell and their allies targeted us specifically during the expansion wars. A species with our longevity and combat prowess was deemed too great a threat." The revelation stunned Elena. Not just a survivor, but potentially the last of an entire species. The weight of such existence was unimaginable. "That's why this mission matters to you," she realized. "The Krell took everything from me," he finished. "My family, my clanmates, my world." His golden eyes fixed on hers. "If they have indeed rebuilt the resonance weapon, history will repeat itself. More worlds will burn." In that moment, Elena saw beyond the cold exterior, beyond the legendary warrior. She saw someone carrying centuries of loss, fighting not just for duty, but to ensure no one else would suffer as he had. "Then we stopped them," she said simply. "Together." Something shifted in Zalin's expression, subtle but undeniable. The faintest acknowledgement that, perhaps, he was no longer fighting alone. They requisitioned a stealth shuttle under the pretense of equipment recovery, a flimsy excuse that wouldn't hold up to scrutiny for long, but enough to get them planetside. The descent to Tartarus 4 was tense and silent. Elena monitored the ship's stealth systems while Zalin piloted with the confidence of someone who had flown countless vessels across centuries. "Our approach vector should keep us below their sensor grid," he explained, guiding the shuttle into a narrow canyon. "We'll land here, proceed on foot to the ridge overlooking the main compound." As the shuttle settled onto the rust-colored soil, Elena checked her gear one last time. "What's the plan once we confirm what they're building?" "If it is indeed a quantum resonance amplifier, we disable it." Zalin's expression was grim. Permanently. The unspoken implication hung between them. This wasn't just a reconnaissance mission anymore. They moved through the Tartarian night with practiced stealth, Zalin leading the way through terrain he had already memorized. Elena was impressed by his ability to navigate in near-total darkness, another adaptation of his ancient species. As they approached the ridge overlooking the Krell compound, a distant memory stirred in Zalin. Another night, another mission, centuries ago. He had not been alone then, either. There had been others of his kind, his squad, his clan brothers. Now all gone, dust in the void. He glanced at the human woman beside him. So fragile compared to his kind, yet she moved with determination and courage. There was something in her that reminded him of... No, he would not make that connection. Humans lived such brief lives. To form attachments was to invite pain. They reached the observation point and settled into position. Below, the Krell base was a hive of activity despite the late hour. The central structure had progressed significantly since their last visit, its distinctive geometric pattern now unmistakable. "Is that what you thought?" Elena whispered. Zalin nodded grimly. "A quantum resonance amplifier. Smaller than the one I encountered during the war, but the design is unmistakable." "How does it work?" "It creates a field that destabilizes molecular bonds. Targeted correctly, it can reduce an entire settlement to dust in minutes." His voice hardened. "During the war, they used it on Kronoth colony worlds. Millions died before we could destroy the original device." Elena processed this, horror dawning on her face. And now they're rebuilding it. Yes, we need to report this, too. A sudden explosion at the far end of the compound interrupted her. Alarms blared as Krell warriors rushed toward the disturbance. Diversion, Zalin muttered. Someone else is here. Elena checked her tactical scanner. Alliance signatures. It's a rescue team. They must be after the hostages. Zalin's expression darkened. Headquarters moved faster than expected. But they don't know about the weapon. This could work in our favor, Elena suggested. With the Krell distracted by the rescue operation, we can infiltrate the weapons site, Zalin finished, already moving. Stay close. They descended toward the compound, using the chaos of the rescue operation as cover. Krell warriors rushed past their position, unaware of the two infiltrators moving in the opposite direction. The central structure loomed before them, its framework pulsing with an ominous blue energy. Zalin led them to a maintenance access point, overriding the security with practiced ease. You've done this before, Elena observed. Long ago, he replied. The principles remain the same. Inside, the technical core of the weapon was a maze of conduits and pulsing energy nodes. Zalin moved with purpose, his ancient eyes scanning the configurations. The power source should be here, he murmured, approaching a central chamber. Once disabled, the weapon will be useless. As they worked their way deeper into the structure, Elena felt a growing unease. It's too quiet. Where are the guards? The Krell wouldn't leave their most valuable asset undefended, Zalin agreed, his posture tensing. Stay alert. They reached the central chamber, a vast space dominated by a pulsing crystalline core, suspended in an energy field. Around it, monitoring stations displayed data in the angular script of the Krell language. Can you disable it? Elena asked, keeping watch at the entrance. Zalin approached the control interface, his expression concentrated. Yes, but it will take time. The system is more advanced than the original. As he worked, Elena's tactical scanner picked up movement. We have company. Multiple signatures approaching. Zalin didn't look up from his task. How many? At least 12, moving fast. I need 5 more minutes. His hands moved rapidly over the controls. Can you buy me that time? Elena checked her weapon. I'll try. She took up a defensive position near the entrance, using the structural elements as cover. When the first Krell warriors appeared, she engaged them with precision fire, forcing them to seek cover. The firefight intensified as more enemies joined the assault. Elena held her ground, but she was outnumbered and outgunned. A Krell energy bolt grazed her arm, searing through her suit and into the flesh beneath. She bit back a cry of pain. Behind her, Zalin worked frantically, aware of her predicament, but unable to abandon his task. If the weapon became operational, millions would die. Almost there, he called. Just need to override the final safeguards. A massive explosion rocked the chamber as the Krell deployed heavier weapons. Debris rained down, and Elena was thrown to the ground. Pain lanced through her side where a metal shard had penetrated her armor. Zalin glanced back, saw her fall. For a fraction of a second, time seemed to slow, memories cascading through his ancient mind. Other battles, other comrades fallen while he continued the mission. Always the mission, always alone in the end. Without consciously deciding, he abandoned the control panel and rushed to Elena's side, shielding her body with his own as another explosion sent shock waves through the chamber. What are you doing? She gasped, clutching her wounded side. The weapon. We'll wait, he growled, lifting her with surprising gentleness. We're leaving. No, she struggled weakly. Complete the mission. That's an order. I don't take orders from lieutenants, he replied, carrying her toward a maintenance tunnel as Krell fire intensified around them. Zalin, please, she pleaded. Millions will die if that weapon activates. He paused, conflicted. Then, setting her down in the relative safety of the tunnel entrance, he removed a device from his equipment belt, a small, spherical object with pulsing lights. Chronoth demolition charge, he explained, activating it with a series of precise movements. Last one I have. It won't destroy the weapon entirely, but it will set them back significantly. Before Elena could respond, He hurled the device toward the crystalline core within human accuracy. Then he scooped her up again and sprinted down the tunnel. Behind them, the explosion was spectacularly larger than the device's size would suggest, the tunnel magnifying the concussive force that propelled them forward. Zalin curled his body around Elena, absorbing the brunt of the impact as they were thrown into a crossway. When the dust settled, Zalin assessed their situation. The tunnel behind them had collapsed, blocking pursuit, but also their exit route. Elena's wound was bleeding steadily, her face pale in the emergency lighting. "That was foolish," she murmured, wincing as he examined her injury. "You should have completed the mission." "The mission is not yet lost," he replied, applying a medical sealant from his kit to her wound. "The weapon is damaged, but we still need to report what we've seen." "Why did you come back for me?" she asked, her voice weakening. "You never struck me as the type to abandon a mission for one soldier." Zalin was silent for a moment, his ancient eyes unreadable. "Neither did I," he finally said. He helped her to her feet, supporting most of her weight. "There should be maintenance access to the surface through these tunnels. Can you walk?" "I'll manage," she said, gritting her teeth against the pain. They moved slowly through the labyrinthine passageways, Zalin's memory once again proving invaluable. Above them, the sounds of battle continued. The Alliance rescue team was still engaged with the Krell forces. "We need to warn them," Elena said. "About the weapon. Even damaged, it could still be dangerous." "First, we get you to safety," Zalin replied firmly. As they navigated the tunnels, Elena's condition deteriorated. The wound was worse than it appeared, the metal shard possibly having nicked an artery. Zalin could smell the increased blood flow despite the sealant. "Leave me," she murmured as her steps faltered. "Complete the mission." "I've left too many behind," he said, his voice unusually soft. "Not this time." He lifted her again, carrying her through the tunnels with renewed urgency. When they finally emerged onto the surface, dawn was breaking over the rust-colored landscape. In the distance, Alliance dropships were engaged in aerial combat with Krell interceptors. Zalin activated his emergency beacon, something he had never done in centuries of service. "Help is coming," he told Elena, whose consciousness was fading. "Stay with me, Lieutenant." "Elena," she corrected weakly. "My name is Elena." "Elena," he repeated, the human name strange on his ancient tongue. "Stay with me, Elena." Her eyes fluttered. "You know, on the ship, everyone's afraid of you." "As they should be," he replied, monitoring her vital signs with growing concern. "Not me," she whispered. "Never saw. Monster. Saw someone. Alone. So alone." Her words struck something deep within him, something long buried under centuries of isolation and loss. Before he could respond, her eyes closed, her breathing becoming shallow. "No," he growled, the single syllable containing centuries of defiance against death. "Not again. Not her." He began administering emergency medical procedures, techniques learned across centuries of warfare. His massive hands, capable of such destruction, now worked with surprising delicacy to stabilize her condition. An Alliance dropship appeared on the horizon, alerted by his emergency beacon. As it approached, Zalin did something he had not done in centuries. He prayed, not to any specific deity, but to whatever forces might exist in the universe that had taken so much from him. "Not her," he whispered again. "Please, not her." The medical bay of the Intrepid buzzed with activity as Elena was rushed into emergency surgery. Commander Takeda intercepted Zalin outside the operating theater, her expression a mix of relief and fury. "Lieutenant Commander, you have some explaining to do," she began. Zalin ignored her, his eyes fixed on the doors through which Elena had disappeared. "Will she survive?" Takeda's expression softened slightly. "Dr. Kavarian is the best surgeon in the fleet. If anyone can save her, she can." She studied the ancient warrior's face. "You care about her." It wasn't a question, but Zalin answered anyway. "She reminded me of someone. Long ago. The rescue operation was a success," Takeda continued, recognizing his reluctance to elaborate. "All hostages recovered, minimal casualties. And according to preliminary reports, you two managed to damage some sort of weapon. Zalin nodded, finally turning his attention to his commander. A quantum resonance amplifier. A superweapon the Krell used during the expansion wars. It must be completely destroyed before they can repair it. Takeda's eyes widened. I'll inform headquarters immediately. But Kvorn, next time, follow protocol. That's an order. As she walked away, Zalin returned his gaze to the operating theater doors. Follow protocol. Complete the mission. These have been his guiding principles for centuries. Until today. Until her. Hours later, Zalin remained outside the medical bay, a silent sentinel. The ship's crew gave him a wide berth as always, but there was something different in their glances now. Curiosity rather than fear, whispers of how the legendary Kronoth had abandoned his mission to save a human officer. Dr. Kavarian finally emerged, her surgical gown spattered with blood. She's stable, she announced, removing her surgical mask. The wound was severe. She lost a lot of blood, and there was internal damage. But she's young and strong. With proper care, she should make a full recovery. Zalin felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Relief that bordered on joy. He concealed it quickly, nodding solemnly instead. When can she return to duty? Dr. Kavarian raised an eyebrow. Not for at least 2 weeks. She needs time to heal, Lieutenant Commander. May I see her? The question surprised even himself. The doctor hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. She's still unconscious from the anesthesia. Zalin entered the recovery room, where Elena lay amid medical equipment monitoring her vital signs. She looked small and fragile against the white sheets, her normally vibrant presence dimmed by injury and medication. He stood awkwardly by her bedside, unsure why he had asked to see her. In centuries of combat, he had never visited a wounded comrade. The mission always came first. Attachments were weakness. Connections led to pain. Yet here he stood. You are resilient, he said softly to her unconscious form. For a human. He turned to leave but paused at the door, looking back one last time. Something had changed within him. A wall beginning to crumble after standing for centuries. In the days that followed, the Intrepid remained in orbit around Tartarus 4 as Alliance reinforcements arrived to deal with the Krell threat. The damaged resonance weapon was a priority target, destroyed completely in a precision strike based on Zalin's intelligence. Contrary to his usual habits, Zalin visited the medical bay daily. Though his visits were brief and often silent, he would simply stand near Elena's bed, sometimes when she was sleeping, sometimes when she was awake. At first, they barely spoke, but gradually, something began to shift. You don't have to keep checking on me, Elena said on the 5th day, sitting up in her bed as he entered. Her color had improved, strength returning to her voice. I know, he replied simply. She studied his face, the alien features that had once seemed so imposing now becoming familiar. You never did tell me why you came back for me in that facility. Zalin was silent for a long moment. Then, uncharacteristically, he pulled a chair closer to her bedside and sat down, something he had never done before. 372 years ago, he began, his voice low. I served with the squad during the final days of the expansion wars. 8 of us. We had fought together for decades. Elena listened, understanding instinctively that he was sharing something precious and rarely spoken. Our final mission was to destroy the original resonance weapon. He continued. We infiltrated the facility, much like you and I did. When the alarm was raised, my squad leader, Scarin, ordered me to complete the mission while they held off the enemy. His golden eyes grew distant with memory. I obeyed. I left them fighting and proceeded to the core. I destroyed the weapon, completed the mission. When I returned, they were all dead or dying. You did what was necessary, Elena said softly. Zalin's gaze sharpened, focusing on her. Scarin was my blood sister, the last of my clan besides myself. As she died in my arms, she made me promise something. What? To keep fighting? To survive? His massive hands clenched. For 3 centuries, I interpreted that as a command to prioritize the mission above all else. To become a weapon myself. And now, Elena prompted gently when he fell silent. Now I wonder if that was ever what she meant. He looked at his hands, then back at Elena. When I saw you fall in that facility, something broke in me. The mission no longer mattered more than your survival. The admission hung between them, profound in its simplicity. Thank you, Elena said finally, for sharing that, and for saving my life. Zalin nodded once, then stood abruptly, his moment of openness passing. But something had fundamentally changed. A connection formed that neither had anticipated. As Elena recovered, whispers spread throughout the ship. The ancient Kronoth warrior, known for his coldness and isolation, was spending time with a human lieutenant. Some crew members observed them talking in the mess hall, Zalin listening intently as Elena spoke, occasionally offering short responses that sometimes even elicited smiles from her. 2 weeks after the Tartarus 4 mission, Elena was cleared for light duty. She found Zalin in the ship's training facility, practicing ancient Kronoth combat forms with his ceremonial blade. Dr. Kavarian says I can start physical therapy tomorrow, she announced as she entered. Zalin finished his form before acknowledging her. Good. Your recovery has been satisfactory. Such high praise, she teased, a familiarity in her tone that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. He almost smiled, almost. Do not push yourself too quickly. Humans heal slowly. So I've been told. She watched him return the blade to its sheath. I've been meaning to ask you something. He waited expectantly. The Kronoth language, would you teach me some of it? The request clearly caught him off guard. Why would you wish to learn a dead language? It's not dead if you still speak it, she pointed out. And I'm a communication specialist. Understanding different languages is part of my job. It is a difficult tongue for humans, he warned. Few have ever mastered it. Then I'll be among the few, she replied with determination. Again, that almost smile. Very well. We begin tomorrow. Their language lessons became a daily ritual. Zalin teaching Elena the complex phonetics and grammar of Kronoth, a language built for beings with different vocal structures. She struggled, but persisted, her determination impressing even the stoic warrior. During one such lesson in the ship's observation deck, Elena attempted a particularly difficult phrase and failed spectacularly, producing sounds that made Zalin actually laugh, a short, rusty sound, as if long unused. The sound startled them both. I haven't heard you laugh before, Elena said, smiling. Zalin sobered quickly. It has been a long time. How long? He considered the question seriously. 117 years, I believe. During the Cygnus campaign, a Paxian officer made a similar linguistic mistake. A century without laughter, Elena mused. That's a long time to go without joy. Joy is a luxury in war, he replied automatically, but there was less conviction in his voice than there might have been weeks ago. Their conversation was interrupted by the ship-wide alert system. All senior officers report to the briefing room immediately. Repeat, all senior officers to the briefing room. In the briefing room, Commander Takeda's expression was grave. We've received disturbing news from Alliance intelligence. The Krell attack on Tartarus 4 was not an isolated incident. Similar bases have been discovered in 3 other sectors. More resonance weapons? Zalin asked, dread settling in his ancient bones. Worse, Takeda replied, activating the holographic display. Analysis of the data you recovered suggests the Tartarus facility was only one component of a larger weapon system, a network that, when activated, could affect an entire region of space. The implications were clear to everyone present. If completed, such a network could devastate dozens of worlds simultaneously. There's more, Takeda continued. Intelligence has identified the mastermind behind this project. The hologram shifted to display a Krell figure with distinctive scarring and cybernetic enhancements. General Vexkar, former head of Krell weapons research during the expansion wars. Zalin went rigid, his golden eyes narrowing to slits. Vexkar still lives? You know him? Takeda asked. He designed the original resonance weapon. Zalin's voice was laden with centuries-old hatred. The one that destroyed my homeworld. The briefing room fell silent as the crew processed this information. "This is personal for you," Takeda observed. "It is justice," Zalin corrected. "Long delay. Then you'll be pleased to know you're being reassigned," Takeda said. "Alliance Command is forming a special task force to locate and neutralize all components of this weapon network. Given your experience with the original weapon and the Krell, you're being transferred to lead the combat element." Zalin nodded, his mind already shifting to battle preparations. This was what he had trained for, fought for, lived for across centuries, the chance to prevent another genocide like the one that had nearly wiped out his people. "When do I depart?" he asked. 24 hours, Takeda replied. "You'll rendezvous with the strike carrier Dauntless at the Arcturus waypoint." As the briefing concluded and officers filed out, Elena approached Zalin in the corridor. "So you're leaving," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "The mission requires it," he replied, equally neutral. They walked in silence for a moment, the unspoken hanging between them. Finally, Elena spoke again. "I've requested transfer to the task force," she said, as communications liaison. Zalin stopped walking, turning to face her. "Why would you do that?" "Because I believe in the mission," she answered, then added more quietly, "and because we work well together." He studied her face, searching for. He wasn't sure what. "It will be dangerous." "I know. You nearly died on Tartarus 4. "I know that too." "Then why?" he demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. Elena met his gaze steadily. "Because some things are worth the risk. Stopping this weapon. Saving lives." She paused, and not letting a friend face his demons alone. Friend. The word resonated strangely within him. When had that happened? When had this human become more than just another fragile, temporary being in his long existence? "I can't guarantee your safety," he said finally. "I'm not asking you to," she replied. "I'm asking to fight alongside you." After a long moment, Zalin nodded once. "Then we will face this together." The following day, as Zalin prepared to depart for the Dauntless, he found himself doing something unprecedented, seeking out Elena in her quarters. She answered her door, surprised to see him. "Halin, I thought you'd be preparing for transfer." "My preparations are complete," he replied. Then, with uncharacteristic hesitation, he extended his hand, revealing a small object, a pendant of some sort, crafted for what appeared to be burnished metal similar to his own armor plates. "What is this?" she asked, taking it carefully. "Kavresh," he said. "In your language, it would mean something like battle-bonded or shield companion. It is rare among my people, given only to those one trusts with one's life." Elena looked up at him, understanding the significance. "You're giving this to me?" "It is traditional to exchange them," he explained. "But as I'm the last, there is no one to craft one for me. It does not matter. The giving is what counts." She closed her hand around the pendant, deeply moved. "I'll wear it with honor." Zalin nodded, seemingly uncomfortable with the emotion of the moment. "The carrier departs at 1,400 hours. I will see you there." As he turned to leave, Elena called after him. "Halin." He paused. "I'll have something for you too. A Kavresh in return. It won't be Kronoth made, but—" "The intent is what matters," he interrupted. Gently, not the source. Hours later, as the shuttle carried them toward the Dauntless, Elena handed Zalin a small object, a medallion crafted from Alliance tritanium, engraved with a synthesis of human and Kronoth symbols. "It's not traditional," she admitted, "but neither are we." Zalin accepted it with surprising reverence, securing it within a compartment of his armor. "No," he agreed, "we are not." As they boarded the Dauntless, crew members stopped to stare at the imposing Kronoth warrior and the human lieutenant at his side. Whispers followed them through the corridors, tales of Tartarus 4, of the ancient alien warrior who had broken centuries of isolation for one human. But for the first time in memory, Zalin didn't mind the whispers. They told a new story now, not one of fear and isolation, but of connection forged in the crucible of combat and trust. The task force assembled in the Dauntless Strategic Command Center, a diverse team of Alliance specialists brought together for this critical mission. At their center stood Zalin, no longer a solitary figure, but one half of a partnership that had already begun to inspire others. Our mission is clear, he addressed the assembled team, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of experience. Locate and destroy all components of the Krell resonance network before it can be activated. He gestured to the tactical display, where Elena had already input the intelligence they had gathered. Lieutenant Chun will brief you on what we know about the network structure and potential locations. As Elena stepped forward to present her analysis, Zalin watched her with newfound appreciation. In her, he had found something he thought lost forever, a reason to fight that went beyond duty or vengeance. A connection to the present, not just the past. The battle ahead would be difficult, perhaps the most challenging of his long existence. The specter of Vexkar and the weapon that had destroyed his people loomed large. But for the first time in centuries, Zalin Kvorn, last of the Kronoth, did not face that challenge alone. For weeks, the task force followed intelligence leads across multiple sectors, dismantling Krell facilities and gathering more data on the resonance network. Each successful operation brought them closer to their ultimate target, Vexkar himself and the central control hub for the entire system. Throughout these missions, the partnership between Zalin and Elena deepened. They developed an almost preternatural ability to anticipate each other's actions in the field, communicating sometimes with just a glance or gesture. What had begun as reluctant cooperation had evolved into something rare and powerful, complete trust. The crew of the Dauntless noticed the change in the ancient warrior. Though still reserved by human standards, Zalin had begun to integrate more with the crew, occasionally joining them in the mess hall, listening to their stories, even sharing rare glimpses of his own extensive history. "Never thought I'd see the day," remarked Captain Ellis, commander of the Dauntless, to Elena as they observed Zalin explaining ancient Kronoth battle tactics to a group of fascinated junior officers. "That warrior's been a legend since before my grandfather was born, always described as cold, distant, solitary." "People change," Elena replied. "Even ancient ones." "Maybe," Ellis conceded. "Or maybe they just needed the right catalyst." He gave her a knowing look before walking away. Their hunt for Vexkar led them finally to an uncharted system deep in what had once been Krell territory during the expansion wars. Scans revealed a massive installation built into an asteroid field, heavily defended and clearly the hub they had been seeking. The assault plan was meticulously crafted, with Zalin and Elena leading a strike team to infiltrate the central control while other forces engaged the Krell's outer defenses as a diversion. The night before the mission, Zalin found Elena in the ship's observation lounge, staring out at the distant asteroid field where their target lurked. "You should be resting," he said, moving to stand beside her. "So should you," she countered with a small smile. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the vastness of space before them. "Tomorrow we face Vexkar," Elena said finally. "The architect of your people's destruction." Zalin nodded solemnly. 3 centuries I have waited for justice, to ensure no other species suffers as mine did. "And after?" she asked, turning to face him. "When this is over, what then?" The question caught him off guard. For so long, his existence had been defined by this pursuit: vengeance, justice, prevention of another genocide. He had never seriously contemplated what might come after. "I do not know," he admitted. "For centuries, this has been my purpose. Maybe it's time to find a new one," Elena suggested gently. Zalin looked at her, really looked at her. In her eyes, he saw something he had not allowed himself to see in any being for centuries: a future. Not just the next mission or the next battle, but something more. "Perhaps," he said softly, "when this is done." The following day, as their stealth craft approached the Krell installation, Zalin found himself unusually contemplative. For the first time in centuries, he was fighting not just for the past, but for a possible future. The battle was fierce from the outset. The Krell had prepared extensive defenses, and despite the element of surprise, the Alliance forces faced heavy resistance. Zalin led the strike team through service corridors and maintenance shafts, his ancient knowledge of Krell architecture proving invaluable once again. When they finally breached the central command hub, they found Vexcar waiting. The Krell General's cybernetic enhancements, even more extensive than intelligence had suggested, transforming him into a grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical parts. "The last Kronoth," Vexcar greeted, his voice a mechanically enhanced hiss. "I wondered if you still lived. How fitting that you should witness history repeat itself." "The only thing that will repeat," Zalin replied, his ancient weapon raised, "is your failure." What followed was a desperate battle within the control center. While Elena and the technical specialists worked to disable the resonance network, Zalin engaged Vexcar directly. Ancient warrior versus cybernetically enhanced war criminal, centuries of hatred fueling their combat. Vexcar's enhancements made him formidable, but Zalin fought with a purpose beyond vengeance now. Each time he faltered, he glanced toward Elena, working frantically at the control systems, and found renewed strength. "Your people were obsolete," Vexcar taunted as they fought. "As are you. The future belongs to those who evolve, who embrace transformation." "Some transformations," Zalin replied, landing a devastating blow that staggered the Krell General, "come from within, not from implants and machinery." The battle reached its climax as the facility began to destabilize. Elena's team had successfully corrupted the control systems, initiating a cascade failure that would destroy the entire network. "It's done," she called to Zalin. "We need to evacuate now." But Vexcar, realizing his defeat, made one final, desperate move. As Zalin turned toward Elena, the Krell General activated a hidden weapon, a miniaturized version of the resonance technology designed as a last-resort suicide device. "If I die," he snarled, "I take the last Kronoth with me." Zalin saw the device activate, saw the distinctive energy field begin to form around Vexcar, a field that would destabilize all matter within its radius, including Zalin himself. Without hesitation, he charged forward, tackling the Krell General. Using his own body as a shield, he called to Elena, "Get everyone out. Now, not without you," she shouted back, even as the other team members began retreating. The resonance field expanded, encompassing both Zalin and Vexcar. The Krell General screamed as his cybernetic components began to destabilize first, energy arcing through his modified body. Zalin felt the familiar, dreaded sensation, the same energy that had once destroyed his homeworld, now trying to tear apart his molecular structure. His natural armor provided some resistance, but he knew it wouldn't last long. In that moment, facing what seemed like certain death, Zalin found himself not dwelling on centuries of loss and vengeance, but on recent memories. Teaching Elena his language, her determined attempts to pronounce impossible sounds, the sound of his own laughter after a century of silence. Through the growing pain, he saw Elena running toward him, defying his order to retreat. "Go," he commanded, using the last of his strength to push her back as the resonance field intensified. "No," she cried, her expression fierce with determination. Then, to his shock, she activated something on her wrist, a prototype shield generator she had acquired for the mission. The shield enveloped them both as she pressed a second device against the resonance generator on Vexcar's body, a localized EMP disruptor. With a final surge of energy, the resonance field collapsed, and Vexcar's cybernetic systems failed catastrophically. In the sudden silence, Zalin stared at Elena in disbelief. "You saved me. That's what teammates do," she replied, echoing her word for what seemed like a lifetime ago. Around them, the facility continued to destabilize, warning klaxons blaring. "We need to move," she urged, helping him to his feet despite his much greater weight. Together, they made their way through the collapsing installation, rejoining their team at the extraction point just as the structure began its final collapse. From the safety of their retreat vessel, they watched as the Krell facility imploded, taking with it the last remnants of the weapon that had once destroyed Zalin's people. "It's over," Elena said softly. "After 3 centuries." Zalin nodded, feeling a strange mixture of emotions: vindication, relief, and something else. Something that felt surprisingly like peace. "Not over," he corrected, turning to face her. "Beginning." In the weeks that followed, as the Alliance celebrated the destruction of the Krell weapon network, the legend of the ancient alien warrior and his human companion spread throughout the fleet. No longer was Zalin Korn a figure to be feared and avoided. He had become a symbol of something else entirely. The power of connection across the boundaries of species, time, and personal history. When the Dauntless finally returned to Alliance space, a formal ceremony was held to recognize the task force's achievement. Standing before the assembled dignitaries and crew members, Zalin, normally so averse to public recognition, spoke briefly but powerfully. "For centuries, I fought alone," he said, his deep voice carrying through the hall. "I believed isolation was strength. I was wrong." He glanced at Elena, standing proudly at his side. "True strength comes from connection, from allowing others to stand with you, even when the path is dangerous." He touched the medallion Elena had given him, now prominently displayed alongside his ancient insignia. "My people had a saying, the longest journey is from solitude to companionship. It has taken me 3 centuries to complete that journey." Later, as they stood together on the observation deck of the station, watching ships come and go against the backdrop of stars, Elena asked the question that had been on her mind since the mission's completion. "What will you do now, with Vexcar gone and the weapon destroyed?" Zalin considered the question thoughtfully. "For the first time in centuries, I find myself looking forward, not back." He turned to her. "The Alliance has offered me command of a new unit, specialists trained in tackling threats that span centuries rather than just immediate conflicts." "That sounds perfect for you," she smiled. "There is one condition to my acceptance," he added, "that you serve as my executive officer." Elena's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? But I'm just a lieutenant. There are dozens of more experienced officers." "Experience can be gained," Zalin replied. "Trust is earned, and you have earned mine completely." She smiled, deeply touched by the offer. "Then I accept. It would be an honor to continue serving with you." As they sealed their new partnership with a formal Alliance handshake, Zalin added something in the ancient Kronoth language. Words Elena now understood perfectly. "Kavresh Navorim," he said. "Shield companions for life." Throughout the Alliance, the story spread. How an ancient alien warrior, feared and isolated for centuries, had found connection with a single, determined human. How together they had faced a threat that spanned the ages and emerged victorious. How barriers of fear and misunderstanding had fallen in the face of courage, persistence, and compassion. Everyone had been scared to get close to this ancient alien warrior, until one human changed everything.